StrayAllDay.com.
You're now tuned into the show where you learn the discipline to show up day after day, to do the work, the confidence to put yourself out there boldly and authentically, and the mental toughness to continue showing up, doing the work, putting yourself out there, even when the success you've expected to achieve is yet to be achieved. And on top of all this, we're not done. No, we're not done. I just like giving you things. I don't know what my problem is. We're going to give you the personal initiative. This is the go-getter energy that moves anyone out there, including yourself, especially you, to go make things happen instead of waiting for things to happen. And then we put all this together into one bundle, one package, one philosophy, one method, one mindset, one approach, one way of living. We just create a whole lifestyle out of this. It's not just a brand. It's not just a podcast. Don't ever call this show a podcast. Actually, you can call it a podcast so people know what you're talking about. But this is a master class, okay? And everything that I just mentioned, they all have one brand name. It is called Work on Your Game. My name is Dre Baldwin, also known as Dre All Day. If you didn't know that, I don't know how you didn't know that, but now you know. And today's topic, welcome to the show, first of all. And today's topic is when you may want to, and this is just optional. All right, what I'm giving you here today is optional. When you might want to press the asshole button. Now, what does that mean, pressing the asshole button? Well, you're going to understand when we get into this episode, but I'll give you a couple scenarios of some things that occurred in my own life when I decided consciously to press the asshole button. I looked back on the situation, realized that I had said or done some asshole things, but I knew exactly what I was doing. I was completely in control of my actions. I do not blame the other entities in these situations. I knew exactly what I was doing. I chose to do it, and I don't feel bad about it. I don't feel any regret or shame about doing this. And I'm not, and again, I'll tell you the examples in a moment, and I'll probably come up with more as I'm talking. But I'm also want to be clear, the disclaimer I'm going to give you before we even get into this is that you don't have to do any of the things that I'm going to say here today. All right, this is completely optional. You don't have to do any of these things. You could be a completely nice person who is a well-adjusted individual and who is emotionally in control at all times, and you are able to do things like turn the other cheek and just see the good in everyone's intentions, even when the results of their actions or what appears to be their intentions seem to be nefarious, and you can just be a nice person and smile at it anyway. Or you could do what I have chosen to do at certain points in life, not all the time, but certain points in life, and just be an asshole because it just feels good in the moment. Again, I'm not telling you that this is ideal. It absolutely is not. But listen, how many episodes do we have of this show? On this show right here, for those of you who are maybe a little bit more new to me, to my ecosystem, or to anything that we talk about here at Work On Your Game, I want you to understand that here at Work On Your Game, now whether we're talking on this show, whether it's a video you watch on YouTube or something I post 15 seconds on an Instagram story, you get on any live event that I do, whether you meet me in person, you come into a clubhouse room, you read one of my books, one of my articles that I write, that I'm going to give you the real, whether it is a situation that you could see as positive, you can see it as negative, maybe you think it's funny, maybe you think it's crazy, maybe you agree with what I'm saying, maybe you completely disagree with what I'm saying, but a couple things about me that I want you to understand, that I do not avoid any topic. I will talk about race, I will talk about politics, I would talk about religion, but I really don't have any opinion because I don't really have any information. I don't follow it. I don't know anything that's going on. But if I did, I would talk about that too. I will talk about conflict. I'll talk about things that seem to be hot button controversial topics that many of your favorite quote unquote influencers are scared to talk about because they don't want to piss off anybody in their audience. I don't have that problem. All right, I'm going to talk about it, and not in a way that I'm trying to piss anybody off, not in a way that I'm trying to offend anybody, but sometimes people do get pissed off, sometimes people do get offended. Trust me, I can show you my inbox, you can see it. But I'm going to always try to explain it in an objective way. Even if I'm explaining something that you disagree with the action, I'm going to explain to you objectively why someone might choose to take that action anyway, even though you disagree with the action. You follow what I'm saying? And I think I'm pretty skilled at doing that. And then if you disagree, you can give me some examples of where I failed at doing it, but I think I'm pretty good at it. And that's why, well, let me back up. When you have a show that comes out every single day like this one, we don't have the time and space to avoid things, right? Because every day this show is coming out, so we got to talk about something. And I never give you filler on the show. There are no filler episodes on Work On Your Game. And you understand that you're in episode 17 something that you're listening to right now. Ain't no filler on this show. We don't give you filler. We don't give you any powder puff topics. I do not do, at least as of this recording, I don't do encore episodes. So I don't like take one of my best performing episodes from 2 years ago and run it back because you missed it. If you missed it, you just missed it. All right. You can get it if you just go to dreallday.com and type in the number of the episode, or you go to workwhenyourgamepodcast.com. But I like creating new stuff consistently over and over again. And then we figure out what we can do with it moving forward to make sure those of you who slept 2 years ago, you can still get that value 2 years from now. But all that being said, why are we talking about this? When to press the asshole button? When is this okay? At least as far as I'm concerned. Again, I'm not asking you to agree. I'm just explaining it to you. You will appreciate the explanation even if you don't agree with the explanation. See, that's right there. That's the best way for me to put when I talk about any of these hot button topics that you may or may not be in alignment with. Even if you don't agree with what I'm saying or the end result of it, you will appreciate my explanation. That's the only thing that I ask. Okay, so if my explanation is off base and it doesn't make sense, you can let me know. All right, I'm not telling you have to agree, but just respect the fact that I can objectively explain why a person, whether it's me or someone else, would do something that doesn't quite make sense to you. So anyway, here's what happened. I went to a local UPS. Everybody knows UPS, right? This is a place where you ship stuff. And I wasn't even making a purchase. I was just dropping some packages off because the packages were already prepaid. You know, I printed the labels and the postage. I already paid for all that stuff. All my stuff was packaged up, labels on it, sealed, signed, sealed, and the only thing left was for them to be delivered. So I was going to UPS to drop these packages off. And on this particular day, I remember I had like several orders had to be shipped. So I had like 30 packages in my hand at the same time. If any of y'all follow me on my social media story, you may have seen some of these times where I got like 20, 30 packages and I have to carry them to the local UPS. It was not far from me. It's like a block away from me. But any of you ever try to carry 30 packages at the same time? Now, these are like bubble mailers and they have books in them. So it's not that they're ridiculously heavy, but it can be tricky carrying that many in your arms when you gotta walk and then you gotta get in the elevator, then you gotta get out the elevator, get out of the building, walk to the, is not as easy as it sounds. Or maybe it's just as difficult as it sounds, depending on who you are. But anyway, too much context there. So UPS, I go in the store and I just need to drop the packages off. Now I go to this UPS all the time. They know my face. They may not know my name because I never need to complete a transaction. Usually I just come in, drop something off, I turn around and I walk out. Even if there's a line, I don't have to stay in a line. I just walk up to the counter and I put my packages down. I get acknowledgement from one of the workers like, hey, I'm dropping these off. They're already paid for. Most of them already know who I am. They're like, oh, they already paid. Good. All right, we got it. Thanks. Sometimes they don't even come get them. They're still dealing with a customer. They go get them, whatever. So on this particular day, this was an evening drop off. It was probably maybe 6 o'clock. I'm dropping these packages off, and there were two women working at the counters. And there was an older woman who was maybe 60 some years old. And then there was a younger chick who was maybe, 30 something. And she's there all the time. I've seen both of them there many times. Now, both of them were serving customers. Now, as I come to drop off my packages, mind you, I got like 30 of these in my hand. The area where I usually drop off the package is just an empty space on the counter in between the two registers. And there's a scale there where people weigh their stuff, but there was this big box. I guess somebody else had dropped something off before me, and there was this big, bulky box, like a 24 by 24 by 24 box blocking the counter. So I couldn't put my packages down there. And as I walked over, I had my packages in my hand, the box is there, and the woman sees me. She looks to her right, because she's serving a customer. She looks to her right, and she sees me looking to drop the packages off, and I'm looking at her. We make eye contact. I don't say anything. And then I say to her, hey, I'm just dropping these off. Now, again, she knows who I am. She's seen me before. And obviously, here's my assumption. I don't know this for a fact, but I'm assuming she probably had a very long day. This is at the end of the day. And I found, here's a tip that I will give you. If you're going to go into a retail business and you need the employees to help you, go at the beginning of the day, because usually they're in a good mood at the beginning of the day, and depending on how the day went, if they're going to be in a foul mood, usually it's at the end of the day, because they had to deal with these asshole customers all day, of which I am not one, at least most of the time. So anyway, the woman sees me. She sees that the box is blocking me from dropping my packages off, and she says something like, you should put the packages on the floor, and then I can get them from you. The problem is there's a big counter here. So if I put the packages on the floor, it's going to be on the customer side, meaning she can't even get to them. And the whole point is I'm not buying anything, so I need to put them where she can get access to them. So putting them on the floor wouldn't make any sense. And I'm like, what do you mean put them on the floor? I'm just dropping them off. This is what I said there. I said, I'm just dropping them off. I don't need to put them on the floor. I just need to move the box out of the way. And she says something, she reiterates, put it on the floor. Then the older woman at the other counter, she says something about putting them on the floor, and she says it in a little bit of a louder tone. And at this point now, they're starting to get my attention. Then the woman is saying something about, I said, I'm just dropping the packages off. You could just move this box, I'll put the packages down, and that's it. I'm just dropping them off. And I know she's seen me before, so this is why I'm assuming that she was having a bad day. Maybe she was just trying to get the hell off of work because in 30 minutes they were going to close the store and she could go home and, take a bath and relax, But anyway, she looks at me and says, well, I'm helping a customer right now. Now, I want y'all to understand something. The box that was blocking me from putting my packages down was, I would say, about 3 feet away from this woman. Now, she was at the register and she was helping the customer. She wasn't lying. She was helping the customer, but all she would have to do is take 2 steps, maybe 1.5 steps, pick up the box that was blocking me, put it down on the floor on her side of the counter, and the space would have been empty. I could have dropped off my 30 packages, said, hey, these are just drop offs. She would have said, got it, cool, thank you. And I would have turned around and left, and it would have been done. But she didn't do that. She says that she's helping a customer, and then this older woman at the other register, she's trying to say again that I need to, put the packages on the floor or something that she's saying. She wasn't even involved in the conversation, but she's jumping into the conversation. And finally, someone moves the box. Maybe I move the box. I don't even remember. But as I start to force my packages onto the counter, kind of shifting the box back to where it might be about to fall. Anyway, the woman comes and grabs the box finally, moves it out of the way. And I say, yo, I'm just dropping packages off. Now, I had a mask on. I pulled my mask down just to make sure that they could hear me. Sometimes when people are talking, they got the mask on. It's hard to kind of tell what they're saying. I don't know if I'm the only one who's had that experience. And it's much easier to understand what someone's saying when you can see their mouth moving. So sometimes if I need to say something to someone, I want to make sure they hear me, I pull my mask down. And yes, I know I'm not supposed to do this inside of a business, but fuck it, I did it. I pulled my mask down and I said, yo, I'm just dropping the packages off. I just needed you to move the box out of the way. And she said, yeah, I get it, but as you can see, I'm helping the customer. And now at this point, I made my statement and I started to turn and walk away because I was just making my final statement. They got the packages. Another worker came up and said, hey, these are all paid for, labeled. I said, yes. He said, cool, I got them. And I made my statement to her and I turned and started to walk away. I took him one step away and she said, well, you can see I'm helping the customer. And I turned around and said to her, I didn't have to say this. I didn't have to do this, but I'm going to tell you what happened because that's the whole topic of this episode. I turned around and said to her, it would have took you 2 fucking seconds. And at this point, I raised my voice even louder. Now, this was the loudest voice that was speaking in the room at that moment. It wasn't that many people in the store. There was the 2 workers, the 3rd worker who had come in, the 2 people who were at the register, and maybe 1 person in line. Now, at this point, nobody's saying anything. Everybody in the store was looking at me. And then the older woman tried to say something, and it becomes this. It was a little bit of an argument. It wasn't anything to argue about. It was just people, getting their frustrations of the day out, and me letting them know that shit, you're working at a place where all you do is customer service. So maybe you shouldn't have this job. You don't want to deal with customers. And I wasn't even the one who was giving them any problems. All they had to do was take the packages and shut the fuck up. But anyway, another worker came in and he tried to calm down the situation, et cetera, et cetera. And there was no furthering of it. I've been in there since then, seen the same worker. I haven't seen the old woman. Maybe they fired her ass, but the younger one, I've seen her and we didn't even mention it. I didn't say anything about it. She didn't say anything about it. I know that it's her and she knows it is me because there ain't too many people look like me coming to that store, but we never mentioned it again. And she's been polite and nice every time I've seen her since. But the whole point was, I remember leaving the store and I was talking to Anna about it later on that evening or maybe the next day. And then I thought of this episode here. And again, as I said in my disclaimer, I didn't have to do that. I didn't have to raise my voice at them. I didn't have to pull my mask down. I didn't have to cuss at the woman. I didn't have to go back and argue with the grandma who was working at the counter who was trying to say some shit. And then here's another thing that happened. The customer who the woman was helping, the woman that I cussed at, the customer she was helping, she tried to jump in the conversation. So then I start cussing her out. It is in the middle of UPS at like 6:30 in the evening on like a Tuesday. And again, I didn't have to do this. I could have easily ignored her or just not even engaged with her, but I decided to do so anyway because As I said, I come there all the time. This rude shit only happened once. I've been there 10 times since this happened, as I'm recording this, and nothing is happening. And I don't feel bad about anything that happened in that situation. As a matter of fact, I'm happy because it led to this content that I'm talking about right now. And the disclaimer again is that you don't ever, I'm gonna say this over and over again in this episode, you don't ever have to be an asshole, especially on purpose to anyone. Now, if you're being an asshole, you're not aware. You just have a very low amount of self-awareness. I don't know any of you know any people who fit that description, then that's different. But if you know that you're doing it, like I knew what I was doing, and you do it anyway, all right, you don't have to. All right, there's never a time you must do this. This is a choice. Is everybody clear on that? Okay, so if I don't want any parents reaching out to me saying, Dre, hey, I got my kids listening to your show, you're telling them to be an asshole. No, I'm telling you this is an option. Okay, and you never ever have to take this option if you don't want to. You can be a better developed individual, better developed than me, and you can handle all situations that you deal with, even when the other person being a complete jerk, a complete just nasty and just being negative and trying to do everything in their power to ruin your situation. Even when someone's being like that, you can still handle every situation with grace and dignity and take the high road. You do have the choice of doing that, and I know some really great people who are really good at doing this all the time. However, I'm not as good as them. You know, that's why I got a show called Work on Your Game. I'm a work in progress, okay? What you can do instead, and this is what we're talking about here today, is you can serve the lower version of yourself, and you can take a ride on the low road. All right, you might not always be able to take the high road. You can take a ride on the low road, like what I'm going to explain here today. I'm sharing this not because I want you to do it, not because I'm trying to encourage the type of behavior. I don't want other people to be like this towards me, but I would never talk to or deal with anyone in such a way that they would need to bring this out of me. And it would be not good for me to pretend like, and here's the reason why I'm talking about it. Let me just reset that sentence. It would not be good for me to pretend like or to preach to you that you can always turn the other cheek, because frankly, and just I'm 100% transparency with y'all, I'm not the type of person to turn the other cheek. If I feel like someone's being a jerk, or I feel like someone's trying to be negative, or I feel like someone's trying to be nasty, or I feel like someone's trying to get in my way, or ruin my experience, or they're just being an ass for no reason, or being a bitch for no reason, or they're working in customer service and I'm a customer and they're not trying to service me, and they're talking to me as if I'm inconveniencing them by asking them to do their job, whether explicitly or implicitly, then I'm gonna let them know about it, because that's who I am as a person. Now, if you've been listening to this show for any amount of time, you probably already know that. And I want you all to understand, because this episode is not really about me, I want you all to understand that if you are that type of person, do not allow other people, I don't care if it's your parents, I don't care if it's your teachers, your friends, your bosses, your whoever, other people to wag their finger at you and try to shame you as if something's wrong with you because you won't turn the other cheek all the time. I'm not a turn the other cheek type of individual. Listen, you want to be a jerk, I'll be a jerk too. Or you want to be an asshole, I'll be an asshole too, and I'm probably going to win. And that's just the way that I look at it. Maybe you call that toxic masculinity. You can call it whatever the hell you want to call it. But listen, if you're polite and doing your thing or not bothering me at all, then I'm going to be the same way with you. But if you choose to interrupt that and do something different, then I'll be willing to do something different as well. And today's episode is about harnessing your ability to do something just in case you need to. But another disclaimer I'll throw in here, as Jordan Peterson says in his book, 12 Rules for Life, when you are willing and able to defend yourself, most of the time, you won't have to. All that being said, sometimes in life, you just want to say fuck it and put people in their place. Well, I do at least. If I'm talking to anybody right now, keep listening. Let's get into our points. Today's topic, once again, is when to press the asshole button. Point number one, when people treat you as if they are more important than you are, and they're not. Now, there are obvious cases like this one at the UPS store when the workers were talking stupid to the customers, which makes no sense. But other cases in life, it doesn't have to be in business. It could be in any situation, and you're the judge of where you think somebody is coming from. Do not let people treat you as if they are more important than you. No human on this planet is more important than another person. I don't care who they are. I don't care if they could be your boss and you could be the worker. Now, they have more power than you. They have leverage and authority over you. They could fire you and hire you, but it doesn't make them a more important human being than you. In other words, just because they have more money than you or higher status than you or have a job title that you don't have, doesn't mean that they can treat you and or deal with you as if your humanity is not equal to theirs. That's what I mean when I say as if they're more important than you. This is in this context, that's what I mean when I use the word important, because I've used it in different contexts in different episodes, but I always make sure I'm defining it for you. Even when someone has more money, they're more known, have higher status in that room or in that industry, whatever, while they may have a position, people are still people. All right. If you're a man, you're still a man. If you're a woman, you're still a woman. Even if you're a man and you're making minimum wage and another person owns the company, that doesn't make them more important as a human than you are. And therefore, you do not need to tolerate somebody communicating or dealing with you in such a way as if your existence doesn't matter just because they got more money in the bank or they're more known than you are. They got more followers on Twitter than you got. Again, this is, well, I don't have to tell you that this is my personal opinion. It's my show. I'm the only one here. But you should probably already understand that. Everybody should be respected no matter who has the power. And honestly, the real test of someone's integrity is not when they're a nobody and they got to deal with people who are bigger and more known than them. It's when they are somebody and they're dealing with people who are not as big and not as known as them. How do you treat those people? How do you treat the people who can't do anything for you? How do you treat the people who are not at the level that you're at? That's when you really learn what someone's integrity is like. Now, I understand the irony of me saying that right after I told you how I cussed out a UPS store worker, but I didn't belittle them. I didn't say, well, you're just a UPS store worker. I didn't say that. I wasn't even thinking that. The whole point was not even about me being bigger than them. The whole point was, yo, you're a fucking customer service rep. I'm a fucking customer. Then respect the customer, because that's the only reason that you have a job. I didn't need to say that. They probably understood that. And if they don't, then hopefully they figure it out, because I doubt I will be the last person they have to deal with if they deal with every customer with that type of attitude. Anyway, it's easy to be nice to someone when they have authority, but what about when you're the one who has the authority? That's the real test of your character. Keep that in mind. Let's move on to point number 2. Topic once again today is when to press the asshole button in life. Number 2, when stupid mofos take your niceness for weakness and do not return the gesture. Let me say that point again. When stupid people who know better but they choose to do the wrong thing anyway, they decide to take your kindness for weakness and they do not return your kindness. In other words, they feel like, or at least it appears that they feel like, we don't know how another person feels or how they think, but their actions show that maybe they feel as if because you are being so nice and so meek and so nice, and I use nice twice, and so, what's the word I'm looking for? Compromising. And you're willing to turn the other cheek, that they feel like, again, it appears that they feel like they can take advantage of you. When that happens, it's okay to be an asshole, as far as I'm concerned. Now, there are people who are listening to this right now saying, no, Dre, that's ego, that's your testosterone, that's toxic masculinity. You know what? I agree. You're 100% right. And this is why some people will be assholes, because they are allowing their ego to control them rather than allowing their logic and reason and no other higher levels of being to control them. And I already said that at the beginning. All right, I already told you I am guilty as charged. Okay, I'm not pretending to be perfect here on this show. There was a movie called Training Day. You remember this movie? Denzel Washington. I forget the guy who was the training cop. But even if you didn't see the movie, here's what happened. In the movie, this guy, Denzel Washington, was playing a police officer, and he was a dirty cop. You find out during the movie that he's like stealing money from suspects, and he's in the drug game, and he's making a lot of money on the side outside of his normal police officer salary. Now, one of the police officers that he's supposed to be training, he's supposed to be showing this guy how to be a detective, I think he was like a drug cop. But he's training this other officer how to become a detective and be a drug cop in the process of doing so. And this trainee cop realizes, like, yo, this guy's a dirty cop. And when Denzel realizes that his trainee has realized that Denzel's dirty, this is what one of the things Denzel explains to him is that, listen, in the streets, we might have to do some dirty stuff. He doesn't say it explicitly. He explains it by giving this metaphor. The metaphor is this: to protect the sheep, which are the normal civilians who are law-abiding people. To protect the sheep, you have to catch the wolves. And it takes a wolf to catch a wolf. In other words, if you're dealing with people who are assholes, you're dealing with people who are dirty and they're in the streets and they're doing things they're not supposed to do, you can't beat them at their game by trying to say, well, I'm not going to stoop to their level. Sometimes you might need to stoop to their level just to beat them at their own game. Otherwise, you might not be able to catch the wolves. And then you won't be able to protect the sheep. And the reason why the sheep get mentioned is because what Denzel was saying, again, and not in as many words, to do the greater good of protecting the people who are law-abiding citizens, I got to become someone who is breaking the law in order to beat the guys who are breaking the law. I'm breaking the law in the name of taking down all the guys who are breaking the law, not because I want to, not because I'm a criminal, not because I'm a bad guy. And it's a really interesting way of explaining yourself. He didn't say it in so many words, but if you see the movie, you'll understand exactly what I mean. I'm sharing that to tell you this. In life, you're going to deal with some people who are wolves. Or maybe they aren't wolves by nature, but in the moment, they may be being a wolf. Like these workers at UPS, they're usually sheep when I go in there, but this one day they were being wolves. And sometimes in life, when you come across wolves, you can't beat them with sheep tactics. Some people are naturally aggressive. Some people are naturally audacious. And some people have a hard time respecting those who are not just as aggressive and audacious as they are. Which means to deal with these people, to get these people to understand you, to get these people to hear you, to get these people to respect you, you might, I'm not saying you have to, but you might need to become a bit of a wolf just to calm these wolves down. You might need to be an asshole just to get your point across to some people who the only language they speak is asshole. So you could either avoid dealing with them at all, or you can get on their level and speak their language. You can speak the dialect that they're speaking. There's an episode right here on this show where I talk about learning how to speak different languages within your language. This is episode number 1251. Now, personally, the only language I ever came close to really being able to speak was Spanish. When I was playing basketball in Mexico, this was 15 years ago, I actually got so good at Spanish that I was having full-on conversations with people who didn't speak English. That's how good my Spanish got at that point, but I haven't really used it much since I left Mexico. So even though I still understand plenty of words in Spanish, I'm not conversational with it anymore. The point is, the only language that I speak fluently is English, but I speak different dialects within English. Many different languages and dialects within the language of English I can speak. In other words, I can speak corporate people who are middle-aged and wear a suit to work every day. I can also speak hood, people who stand on the corner and may never leave their neighborhood their entire lives, and a whole range of conversations in between. Even though everybody's speaking English, there's different ways of communicating. Everybody understand what I'm saying here? So sometimes when you're dealing with wolves, you got to speak the wolf language, and when you're dealing with sheep, you got to talk the sheep language. And if you fail to speak the right language to the right type of person, your communication will not land the way it needs to land. Therefore, you probably will not achieve what you're seeking to achieve. So this is what Denzel meant when he said, in order to protect the sheep, you got to catch the wolves. And to catch a wolf, you got to become a wolf. Now, is there a nicer way of doing this besides what I just explained so eloquently? Yes, there is. There's a nicer way of doing this. There's a way that you can get across to a wolf without becoming a wolf. But I just choose to speak the wolf language when I want to get my point across to a wolf. There's another way to do it. Might take a little bit more time. As they say, you catch more flies with honey than you do with salt. But sometimes I just want some salt on my food. That's just me. Again, I'm not telling you to do it. That's not today's topic. Well, today's topic is to do it. My topic is not to use the honey. There will be other topics about that. I've even done episodes on exactly that. Today is the toxic masculinity episode. Why? Because this stuff happens in life. I'm not telling you that you need to be a toxic individual. I'm telling you that there are toxic individuals out there, and you better be armed with the tools for dealing with them, because they will use their toxicity against you if you are unprepared for their energy. Just like my favorite book, The 48 Laws of Power by Robert Greene. One thing that Robert says about the book is that the book has had many critics. Even though it has many fans like myself and many others, it also has many critics, because many people looked at the book and said it's immoral. Some of the things that he's preaching about, like get others to do the work for you, but always take the credit, or use selective honesty and generosity to disarm your victims. These are some of the titles of the chapters in that book. And people are looking at that like, yo, this is immoral. This is a book about manipulating people. And what Robert Greene explains in the foreword of the book, he says, listen, I'm not necessarily telling you that you need to do these things. I'm telling you that these are the things that people do in general. So even if you're not going to use them, you need to understand that other people will use them. So you need to be ready for when someone else uses this as an offensive weapon against you, so you know how to play defense. Just like Denzel said in Training Day, it takes a wolf to catch a wolf. If you don't understand the laws of power, when someone else is using one against you, you will be caught off guard and you end up being the one getting used. So which one is better? And this is what I want all of you to understand, especially those of you who are maybe younger people and or those of you who have lived a somewhat sheltered life. That maybe if, depending on who you have learned from and what books you read and what you've been watching and listening to and what TV shows you pay attention to and what politicians you listen to the most, you may think that there are these perfect solutions to certain challenges in life. All right, so here's a challenge right here. All we need to do is this, this, and this, and that'll be solved. And this challenge, if we just do this, that'll be solved. And this challenge, if you just listen to what this guy said, then that'll be solved. That is not the way the world works, people. Life does not work like this. Human nature does not work like this. There are no perfect solutions. There is no solution to, there are certain things in life, like the fact that there are some negative people out there, there are terrorists out there, there are criminals, there's poverty, there's the income gap, there's the wealth gap, there's all these other things going on that you may think are bad things in life, and you want to do everything you can to help solve those issues. I'm not telling you not to. What I'm telling you is every solution that you come up with, there is a downside to that solution as well. There are no perfect solutions. As one of my favorite authors, a guy by the name of Thomas Sowell, he says this: there are no solutions, there are only trade-offs. And one of the biggest challenges with politicians in general, especially those who promote the causes of what we are now calling social justice, but this has been going on for a long time, it's not new, is that many of them propose like, hey, if you just follow what I'm saying, or we just follow this plan, that'll solve everything. But that's incorrect. Anyone who's telling you that they have a perfect solution to a problem that's been going on for a long time is lying to you. They're just selling you something. You're just not noticing the holes in their proposal, which they are not putting out there, but their critics are. But maybe you don't hear their critics because you're only paying attention to people that you want to hear. Different conversation for a different day. And we've had that conversation already, and I'm sure we will have that conversation again. So I hope everybody really is understanding this point that I'm giving you here. And we're still on point number 2, the topic today, when to press the asshole button. Even if you don't use some of these tactics that I'm talking about here today, even if you don't follow everything Robert Greene says in the 48 Laws of Power, it's not about you using them. It's about you understanding that other people may use them against you. Sometimes the best offense is good defense. In sports, they say defense wins championships. Sometimes that applies in life as well. Point number 3. Today's topic, once again, is when to press the asshole button. The third time when you should press the asshole button is when you feel like punching somebody in the face. Now, let's be clear. These days, you can't really punch people in the face. Now, I don't know. Look, I was born in the 80s. I grew up in the 90s. In the era that I come from, if you had an issue with another person, you couldn't passive aggressively get your aggression out. You couldn't get that energy out in a passive aggressive way because there was no method for doing so. Only ways to communicate with people, you could write them a letter and send it like snail mail through the U.S. Postal Service or whatever postal service, but we didn't really communicate with each other that way most of the time. And we didn't have social media. So if I had a problem with somebody who lived 3 blocks away from me, I couldn't post it to my Instagram. I couldn't leave a comment on their page. I couldn't write a caption. I couldn't do any of that. I had to wait till I saw them. And if I really wanted to say something to them, I had to say it directly to their face. And if they didn't like what I said, or I didn't like something that they said or did, then we would have a physical altercation right there on the spot, or at least a verbal altercation right there on the spot. This is just the way that it was. And whatever happened ended up happening. And then it was over, and then everybody moved on to the next day. These days, it's a little bit different. Now we have these social media platforms. Now we have these devices, and we can get all of our aggression out through our thumbs. As some people call it, I saw somebody say this on Twitter the other day. People have thumb muscles, where they get their aggression out through what they type on their phones, because you don't have to go see that person face to face. And of course, on the internet, you can say anything. There's most of the time very little accountability. I'm saying all of that to explain this. For point number 3, you can't punch people in the face anymore these days. There's a lot what's the word? I don't even know what word to use these days. Many words have been thrown around, but the right word is not coming to me right now. But it's not as direct aggressive as it used to be. The era that I grew up in, it was direct aggression. If you had an issue with somebody, y'all had to see each other face to face and you dealt with it right there. Hopefully you could talk it out. Maybe you couldn't. And if it got physical, and that's what it was. These days, things get physical. The first thing people are doing, first of all, everybody's filming it. So you're basically telling on yourself, and whoever loses is going to go tell and try to get you in trouble. And these days, again, back in my day, we called it snitching when you told on somebody. Nowadays, people are snitching and they call it accountability. We called it something completely different. We had completely different categorizations for somebody who aired out another person for handling their business in the way that they chose to handle it, especially if the quote unquote victim was 100% for it until they lost. Like, two people got a problem and y'all meet up and one person gets beat up, all right, then you're the victim of getting beat up, then you can't go tell, like, you wanted to fight. Now, if you didn't want to fight and somebody hurt you, that's a whole different thing. But if you wanted it and you promoted it and then something happened to you, you can't go tell on that person for beating you up. But anyway, different conversation for a day that may not even, who knows? Maybe there'll be a whole nother wave. I think things come in cycles. So maybe 10 years from now, it'll be like that all over again. That's what I've heard, but we'll find out. The whole point is this. Next time you want to punch somebody in the face, depending on the venue that you're in, depending on the environment that you're in, you may not want to do that because the world ain't like how it was, the way that I just explained. These days, you probably don't want to do that. These days, you probably want to be an asshole instead. What I talked about in when I did one of my virtual mentor episodes, I talked about Dame Dash, who was one of Jay-Z's business partners when they started their business, episode number 488. One thing I heard Damon say many times was that he comes from the same type of environment that I come from, that he's a generation older than me. But one of the things that he said, in my day, if two dudes had an issue, we would just have a fist fight. But he learned when he got into the business world that he couldn't, smack some record executive in the face because they would call the cops on him. They would sue him. He'd get locked out of the building. He wouldn't be able to conduct business. So he realized when he got into the business world, if he comes against one of these, in his words, corny guys who have never been in a fight in their life, but they think they could talk to people anyway, how he would normally smack that guy in the face or beat him up. He realized he couldn't do that, so he realized what he needed to do was now learn to humiliate those people. And that's what he would do. He would laugh at people and make jokes about them and just humiliate them in front of their own staff and just make them look like an idiot in front of the people who respected them. And then Dame said that was my offensive weapon. Instead of beating you up, I would just laugh at you and clown you and just humiliate you for even coming against me. And this is what I'm suggesting that you do. All right, you can be an asshole and humiliate somebody and ridicule them instead of beating them up, because beating them up will cost you money. You might get arrested, and it takes physical energy, and who knows, you might lose the fight. You try to fight with somebody, don't even realize what they have the skill to do. This is why your communication and public speaking skills need to be on point. You got to be able to speak, because if you're not good at talking, then this is what happens. Sometimes people resort to physical violence because they don't have any other way of expressing themselves. But when you can express yourself verbally, then you don't have to do it physically all the time. You can handle people with your words, and it saves you a lot of time and effort. You can achieve the same outcome with words that you would have achieved with hands. And even better, if you punch somebody in the face, that bruise that they have on their face will go away in a week or two. But if you are able to get into somebody's mentality, that bruise stays there for the rest of their lives. So you can actually hurt people worse by getting into their heads than you can by hitting them on the head, if you understand what I'm saying. And as I said, less police involvement, no lawsuits, less physical exertion, etc. As I said, I'm from the era where things got handled with overt aggression, and that was a normal thing. Physical altercations and threats, but that era is long gone. I want to make sure I'm on the record saying that era is over. So any of you who know what I'm talking about, who are from that era, you know that we can't do that anymore. All right, we can't be violent. There's no fist fighting, none of that. Everybody's just on their phones typing captions and all that. This is why you got to get your communication skills up so you can play the game that's being played now. You got to be able to adjust with the times. Everything is much more diplomatic. We need new tools. Now you got to do with words what we used to do with hands. That's when it's okay to be an asshole. All that being said, I think I've talked enough about being an asshole today. Let's recap today's class, which is when to press the asshole button. As a disclaimer, again, you do not necessarily ever have to be an asshole to anyone. You can be better developed than me. You can handle all situations with grace, dignity, and take the high road, or you can take the low road. All right, there's always space available on the low road, and sometimes in life you just want to say fuck that and put people in their place instead of being a nice guy and turning the other cheek, or a nice girl and turning the other cheek. Today I'm going to tell you when it is okay to do so and when you should not feel apologetic about doing it. Number one, when people treat you as if they are more important than you and they are not, No human being is more important than another human being. Maybe you have more money, maybe you got a higher job status, maybe you are more known, but a human is a human, a man is a man, a woman is a woman. What somebody has does not make them more important than you. So if someone treats you as if they are more important than you, it's okay to be an asshole and put that person in their place and make sure they understand who you are and the respect that you are demanding. Number 2, when stupid mofos take your niceness for weakness and do not return the gesture. As Denzel Washington said in Training Day, it takes a wolf to catch a wolf. In other words, you need to understand that some people only understand the language of being an asshole or being blustery or being aggressive or just being very audacious. And if you don't speak that language, they will not respect you. And therefore, if you want that person's respect or you want to get that person's attention, you got to be able to stoop to their level and get on the low road with them and beat them at their own game. Just like the 48 Laws of Power said, it's not necessarily that you need to go manipulate people, it's that you need to understand that other people will try to manipulate you. And the better you understand their game plan, the better you will be able to defend yourself against it when they try to use it on you. And number 3, when you want to punch somebody in the face, since we can't do that these days, everything's diplomatic these days, everything's on camera. You can't lie and say you didn't do it. Somebody filmed you. Somebody got you on Instagram. That era is long gone of being able to punch people in the face. It's more diplomatic now. So we need new tools. Sharpen up your communication and public speaking skills so you can humiliate people mentally and emotionally rather than beating them up physically. It lasts longer anyway. Work on your game. Dre all day.